Hi, it's Geoff Chalmers here from discoverdouble-bass.com, where you can go to learn all about the double bass with our courses, our lessons, interviews with some of my favourite bass players. And it gives me real pleasure today to invite someone whose music I've been geeking out on, certainly over the last few months since they released their solo album Music for a Locked Double Bass. Back in 2020, their first album as a band leader came out, and they've been working in the French scene for, well, I believe over 20 years. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Vladimir Torres. Welcome.
Thank you, Geoff.
Oh, it's just been great that you've come to spend time with us here in Paris and to discuss your music. And are you in the middle of a tour right now? Have things picked up after the pandemic? Are you back to normal life? How is it looking on the road for you?
Sort of. We've been touring this month a lot, and we had with my trio, and we have 11 concerts in May, and then we've been playing a lot since the pandemic, and now we'll have a few more concerts until the end of the year. So
and does it feel more like it did pre-pandemic? Are the audiences? What's the reaction been like from the audience?
No, it's not the same. Not all the audience come to the concerts. It used to be a lot of elders.
Yes.
So they're still afraid, I think so. So it's not the same audience than before.
Yeah.
But it's getting cooler.
It's getting there. I mean, I'm looking forward to just a bit more normality, and it's been great to be able to travel here to Paris to meet you and to talk bass. And one of the things that I'm interested in is your solo album, Music for a Locked Double Bass. But before we kind of look at that and explore some of the pieces, tell us about who you got started with, how you got started. I mean, who was your first teacher? And you're Uruguayan, I believe, but you have lived in France for...
Yeah, I was born in France, and both of my parents are from Uruguay.
Yes.
And I lived there when I was a child, and then that's it. I started music at 4, but playing violin.
Yes.
Yeah. And the bass I started at 20.
So who was your first bass teacher that got you really excited about your music?
I didn't really had any bass teacher. In 20 years, I spent 2 afternoons with Chris Jennings.
Oh, wow.
and that's it. That's all.
And you found your own way?
Yeah.
That's really fascinating. And Chris Jennings is a wonderful Canadian bass player living in Paris, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
really love him, and his playing is great.
And did he help you with some of the fundamentals?
It was something like 11 years ago, so I was already a bass player, and I was living of playing the bass. But he gave me a lot of some technical approaches that could help me. That's it.
Yeah. But you're finding your own way with the instrument, and
I think so.
And I think you can hear that in the way that you play. You've got your playing has a powerful voice to it, and you have just released this album, Music for a Locked Double Bass. What was the inspiration for that? How did the concept come about and the project come about?
It's a pandemic album.
Yes.
Completely. And there's many. But once we've been locked down, we weren't able to rehearse with the band, to play live. So I've been looking for a way to play the songs I like, or to compose music and play it all by myself, and that was the idea. So I started first because I needed to have some video material for the social medias.
Yes.
And to be present and to stay present. And so I started working on some tunes I liked, and find a way to play it alone and to propose it.
Were you inspired by other bass players doing solo recordings? Because in the last few years we've had Mark Johnson's Overpass, we've had Larry Grenadier's The Gleaners. Yeah. There's been a lot of music coming out since Dave Holland kicked it off. Well, one of the earliest was Dave Holland's Emerald Tears, of course, but yeah, what are the records that you've been listening to that have excited you with unaccompanied solo bass?
Yeah, in fact, I didn't decided to do this album because of the others.
Yes.
It was really because I started playing those tunes, and then I had the opportunity to record in a nice place, the birthplace of Gustave Courbet, the painter, you know.
Wow.
And which is really near from where I live. And then I had this place for me alone, and I recorded it alone, and that's it. So I decided to fix it on an album.
Yeah.
But yes, I've listened a lot to Dave Holland's album, of course, and now to the Gleaners. That I've been listening to it yesterday, and Mark Johnson too, of course.
And there's so many wonderful players. I read in I think an interview with you that was online that you're a fan of Petros Klampanis, and I love his playing. And I'm thinking about the solo bass. He did that wonderful rooftop project. Yeah. Have you seen those videos where he's on all these rooftops in different cities? Which we'll provide a link to below. But a wonderful player, and it certainly made me think about you. I mean, in terms of performing, then the pieces that you chose for the album. How much of it was just you on your own? How much of it was using loops or overdubs?
More of them are with overloops, looping the bass and several times. But it was not. I did not record it with looper.
Yes.
I really recorded the loop and made the loop and recorded.
And then were you listening on your headphones back and improvising over the top?
And some of the tunes are without any loop, and so just the bass.
Well, one of them that we were chatting about just before we picked up the start of the session was Eleanor Rigby, and I think it's just such a great choice. Would you mind playing a little bit of the melody?
Yeah,
it just sounds gorgeous. Beautiful melody. It sits so nicely on the bass. Were there many pieces that you were kind of considering and having to work through? What did the process of selection look like?
Really, just songs that I love. It was just that.
So what else is on the record?
Goodbye Pop I Had from Charles Mingus.
Well, I think this is one of the first things I heard you play. Could you play a little bit actually of that as well? Because I just loved it. Wonderful, just right. It just sounds so rich. And, I mean, do you have when you're approaching a melody, do you have how do you put the arrangement together?
First, I learned the melody, just listening to it, and searched the different ways to play it on the bass. And then I work on the harmony and try to find a way to make it sound together, and the best way to do it. Sometimes I have to change the bass because I not necessarily can play the right bass of the chord. Yeah. But I try to get in there, and sometimes I change the harmony too. Yeah. Just because I want to reharmonize the song. Could you give us an example of that? Maybe one that you might have tweaked. And what about Amazing Grace, or has that all got any changes? Maybe. I'm not sure anymore. It sounds wonderful. And what about a piece like you're also playing a lot of pop music as well? Yeah. The Michael Jackson piece. Which one was that you did? Human Nature. Yeah, Human Nature. Yeah. That's the hard one. Yeah. Is it?
It sounds amazing. What was the crazy little bit where you popped up top and then went back down again at the beginning? That was so cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just so nimble, you know. It's really. And how did you sort of develop this kind of fluidity on the instrument? Was there stuff that you worked on when you were a student that really helped you, or any, you know, advice that you had? Because you move around so comfortably, Vladimir. It's amazing that you haven't had, you know, years and years of lessons.
But I didn't took any lessons, so just time, and I've been trying to improve myself the best I could. One advice I can give to any bassist is not to squeeze the neck. Never squeeze the neck. You get to have the thumb really free.
Yeah.
And then you just have to squeeze the bass between those fingers and your body, but not the
thumb pressing back. It's just about the. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what helps me to mobility. So
because you move so comfortably in and out in thumb position, that's why it really shocked me with that little line. It was like, whoa, what's going on? It's great for the listener because you're so drawn in.
So that I think that's it, and just time.
Yeah.
Really, you have to learn the neck and to know where you are. Always think the notes. And
what about? I mean, a big part of this album as well is presenting your own music.
Yeah.
And I was saying that I was to you earlier on. We were enjoying Contra Arriba.
Contra Arriba.
Thank you. And maybe you could just play a little bit of the themes in here, because it's got this quite dark theme that it starts with, and then there's a much lighter melody and motif that moves through the piece. Maybe you could play a little bit of those two parts. And
you want part of the theme and then the
why not? Yeah, it's stuff. Yeah.
And then
so cool. I just love that. It's so uplifting and energizing. It's a really, really cool piece. Okay, lastly, what about some of the bass players that you're really excited about? And I'm thinking maybe some of the younger generation of players. You know, we mentioned Petros Klampanis. Who is there that you think people should be listening to?
Petros is one of the most important musicians and artists for me.
Have you met him?
No, not yet. We've been talking a lot. We almost met 2 months ago in Brussels because he was playing the day before I played there in the same place. But we played in Bruges before, and he was leaving for Berlin anyway. But we did not met yet, and but we've been talking a lot.
Another player that comes to my mind that's linked in with Petros is Or Baraket.
Yeah,
and
of course.
he is actually in Paris tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, I would have loved to have met Or, because he's one of these guys that I just love his playing, and he's got a new album out called Shah, I think, this week, and unfortunately, the way these things go, you just miss each other. But
he's touring in Europe, and he will be also playing the places I've been in Spain just a few days before.
Well, they're two great names for people to check out. And just to finish off, people always ask us, and we'll leave comments saying, what's going on with the gear? Because we love to talk about basses to bassists. Yeah. So what have you got here? This instrument sounds incredible. So
yeah, I'm really happy, and I feel really lucky to have this bass and to have found this bass.
When did you find it? How long?
In 2014.
Yeah.
And I call it a Franken bass.
Okay.
Okay, because it's not from the every piece is not from the same bass. Okay.
Okay.
So it's basically a Mercourt from 19th century.
Yeah.
And the back and the sides are from these years. And then my luthier in Besançon, where the place I live, Yves Deloffre, which is great luthier.
What's his name, sorry?
Yves Deloffre.
Okay.
And he crafted the front and the neck, the head.
It's so beautiful, because the varnish, I don't know how well it can be picked up on camera, but it really is so rich. And could you turn the bass around so we can see the back as well? Because so this is the original back, and you can see the patina on the varnish, which is again probably hard to pick up on camera, but it's just such a beautiful. And the neck, the bird's eye maple on the neck is incredible. At the back of the neck, and that's gorgeous. Look at that. You know, my bass is actually a similar thing in the sense that it's an old back and side, and it's got a modern front. But the reason my bass is so dark is because whoever did it didn't do a very good job. They just made it all darker. Whereas the way that your luthier's done it is very sympathetic, because I didn't realise it was two different. Yeah. And the scroll is beautiful as well.
Yeah, with some Germans. So just for the.
Well, I'm glad that you guys have found each other. And what about the strings? And what have you got on here?
Yeah, I've got the chance to be a Piastro artist.
Yeah, congratulations.
For more than a year now. And now I'm using Perpetual in EAD. Yeah. And the G is Olive now. And I also play on Eudoxa.
Now, Eudoxa are a string I've never used. What do you like about them, and how are they different from a set like the Perpetuals or even the Olive G?
It's harder to play than the Olive.
Okay.
Just a bit harder, but it's brighter. And for a bass like mine, it's good to you can hear the difference in the album, because I played both sets. So I play some tunes with Olive and some with Eudoxa.
Can you name one with one?
No, I must listen to it again to know.
Well, maybe you can let us know afterwards, and we'll put a link underneath. And you know, the album. There's another thing that occurred to me is: do you use reverb on the album, or was it natural?
All natural.
It's unbelievable.
The place I recorded in. You can watch maybe a video I made with a dancer on the song called Un año sin verte. That's the place I recorded it.
The whole thing?
Yeah, the whole album.
Oh wow!
Was recorded there, and it's only the reverb of the place, and the sound is pure.
The place, the person, the music, it's really come together. It sounds beautiful, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone here for joining us. You know, it's just been so cool to finally meet you. We've chatted online, and we're going to finish off by hopefully hearing a little bit of your music. But lastly, where can people find you online, Vladimir? Where can people go to find out about your music?
Yeah, in social medias. It's the best way to find me.
Yeah, all under Vladimir Torres.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, listen, we're going to cut away and listen to a performance of you playing a solo piece for us, and we'll provide the links to everything that we've discussed today underneath this video. And on behalf of the crew, myself, everyone here, thank you so much for coming to join us today, Vladimir.
You too.
Thank you.